In today's video, we're going to be covering population structure. So we should be able to identify and give reasons for the different types of population structure, as well as be able to understand the age-sex pyramids at different levels of economic development. And this has to do with the demographic transition model. So I suggest that if you're not familiar with this model, then you should go learn about that first, and so understanding population pyramids will be easier for you. So the structure of a population is the result of the three processes called fertility, mortality, and migration. So when you look at a population structure, these are the three factors that you're going to be annotating or understanding. And of course, there are other aspects of population structure that can be studied, including race, religion, and social or occupational group. But the one that we're doing in our syllabus is age and sex. So we're going to have to familiarize ourselves with age and sex population pyramids. Great, so now I'm going to show you some useful tips for understanding population pyramid. I'm going to show you a general one which is not affiliated with any country, and we can start off from here and then go on to specific countries. So now I've drawn this shape and we're going to annotate it. The first thing that you need to know is in every population pyramid, the lower section of it is 15 and the upper section would be 65, and this is in terms of age. And you don't have to do this for every population pyramid that you get in your paper. It will already be annotated, but this is just for your understanding. Great. Now, let's start off with age. So as I said, this is 15 years and this is 65 years. Now, the higher the pyramid is, the longer the people live, right? So that means the higher the pyramid is, the longer the life expectancy. So high pyramids equals long life expectancy. Now, one thing you need to know is that this is male and this is female. It's always this way, left side for male and right side for female. So when you are asked in a question to say the differences between male or female, you look at the left side for the male and the female side, and you can pick out the differences. Next, you need to look at the bottom of the pyramid. So around here, right? So if the shape is wide, if the base of the pyramid is wide, that is, it has a high birth rate. And if the base of the pyramid is narrow, it has a low birth rate. So wide base means high birth rate, and narrow base means low birth rate. So obviously in this pyramid that I've drawn, the base is wide, so you can say that this one has a high birth rate. Great. Now, if you see that this area over here, it's just kind of standing out, right? So what it tells you was that since we said that till here it's 15 years and here it's 65 years, right? If we see that at 15 years the pyramid is bigger over here, then we can say that it is there are a lot of young dependents, and if at 65 it is big, you can say there are a lot of old dependents. Let me draw something else. So if you look here, 65, 15, right? And if your pyramid goes like this, it tells you that at this point we know that there are old dependents, and if your pyramid goes something like this, then you know that at this point you have young dependents. So you have to look at the age markers, and then you'll know what kind of dependent population that country has. So in this one, it is a young dependent population, and since if you look here, it's on the male side, so the male side has a much more bigger young dependent population. However, the female side has a smaller young dependent population. And the next thing you need to know is certain bulges there will be in your graphs. So for example, this is a bulge. So what does a bulge show you? These two are bulges, right? So there's two things that a bulge could show you. The first one is a baby boom, that is sudden increase or rapid increase of population. And the second one is a period of immigration. And let me explain that to you. So usually what happens is migration from rural areas are usually age selective, right? So single young adults and young adults with children will usually dominate this process. So you also have to look at the age before giving a comment on the bulge at the pyramid. The next thing is, I think that's it, yeah. So this is sort of, I've given you an idea of how you need to just go about annotating a population pyramid. And I've only covered a few factors here, and you will get better at this when you go with specific examples. So let's move on to an LEDC's population pyramid. So as you can see here, this is pyramid A, alright? And this is what you would see in a typical developing country. There is a high birth rate, and we know this because the base is large. And it has a low life expectancy because, as we said, it's narrower over here. It gets narrower. If the narrow base at the top shows a low life expectancy, so high birth rate and low life expectancy, right? Now in a pyramid B, that's developed countries, there would be lower birth rate or lower death rate. It really depends on the country, right? So a narrow base shows us a low birth rate, and we have a longer life expectancy because the broad shape at the top shows the high proportion of the people living longer. Now this is an LEDC population pyramid. Again, as we said, this is how all population pyramids actually look like. This is just standard because it's not specific to any country, right? So in your past papers, or your papers actually, you're going to be coming across pyramids like this. So this is the age, this is the gender, and this is called an age-sex population pyramid. So what you can understand from here is, again, as we said, the narrow shape at the top, it shows us a low life expectancy. However, if you look at the other side, you can see that there's, a bit more broader than males, so you can take the assumption that women live longer than men. Now, okay, so if your population pyramid has some indents, sort of like it goes back inside instead of, so these points, this is called an indent. It shows us that there's significant death rates, or higher death rates than normal. As you can see, this would be normal birth rate, normal birth rate, normal birth rate, and you can see it's decreasing, right? So this area, this shows us, this is an indent, and it shows us there are higher death rates than normal, and this could be due to war, famine, or disease, or immigration even, because as more people leave, the lesser the population happens. And of course, over here we have the wide base that shows us a high birth rate. Another thing you can focus on is this part. So here we know that there are less female children than boys, but boys have a higher infant mortality rate. And you know that as you go up, and then you can see how it works, right? And this also could be due to the fact that more male children go on to war. Now this is an MEDC population pyramid. So we know that MEDCs usually have low birth rates, so narrow base. Now less baby girls than boys, and as we said before, indents that show us higher death rates, bulges that show us periods of immigration, or a baby boom that is a rising population. And at the top you can see the life expectancy. So women live longer than men, and men don't live that long in this MEDC population pyramid. Now we're gonna answer a past paper question. So if you just take a look at this graph, this is South Sudan and Germany. So that is an LEDC and an MEDC. Now it says, give 3 differences between the population structure of South Sudan and the population structure of Germany. Now you just have, actually, let me just tell you that these empty places here, in the first part of the question, we were asked to complete it, and I actually just didn't do that because I wanted to answer these questions. So now when they're asking you to give differences between population structure, you have to just go straight and look at the pyramid and give your answer, and you don't have to relate it to any sort of theory, right? So you can see that South Sudan has a higher birth rate because of the wide base. You can also say that South Sudan has a younger population, because if you look at the 10 to 14 age group over here and the 10 to 14 age group over here, South Sudan has a younger population. And here the life expectancy is longer. Here it's smaller for both males and females. So I'm just going to write that down. So you need to be really specific. You can't just say younger population and not specify which age group, because that is going to cost you a mark. Secondly, we said that the life expectancy is longer, so life expectancy means economically active, right? So this would give me 3 marks, because the main thing is that in each of my answers I have specified the age group. So if I don't specify the age group, then it's going to cost me a mark. Now suggest one problem caused by each population structure. So as we said, it has a younger population, so more people to educate, feed, and support. So basically more money spent on education and healthcare, and Germany would have fewer younger workers, so shortage of labor supply. So just take a look at this. This is in relation to the demographic transition model. So if I am to give an example for each of these countries to just help you understand better. Now let's talk about dependency ratio. So the dependency ratio is basically the relationship between the working or the economically active population and the non-working population. So there's a formula for this, and it goes like percentage of population So this is the formula for dependency ratio. So developing countries usually have a higher dependency ratio. And developed countries usually have a lower one. Oh, and don't confuse this abbreviation with death rate. I just wrote it to save space. So as you know, in developing countries, children form a majority of the dependent population, and in contrast, developed countries have much more of a balance between the young and old dependent. So the dependency ratio is important because the economically active population will in general contribute more to the economy in terms of income tax, sales taxes, and taxes on the profits made by business. However, the dependent population tend to be the bigger recipients of government funding, particularly education, healthcare, and public pensions. So if there's an increase in a dependency ratio, it can cause financially problems for the government. And so it's a very good indicator. It's an internationally agreed measure of development, right? So I'm going to give you an idea of what is aging population and the impacts of it, and a young population and the impacts of it. Now let's see, for example, Germany. So Germany is a country with an aging population. And the reasons for an aging population is improved healthcare and healthier lifestyles. So, as we know, usually MEDCs have aging populations because the life expectancy increases. And when we say healthy lifestyles, we mean access to clean water and food, low birth rates, now what problems does an aging population bring? So the problems of an aging population, and you can apply this to any country. So as you can see in our past paper, we had to answer about South Sudan having a younger population, right? We'll get on to that, but first, aging population. So first of all, as we said, wait, I didn't write that down, but I did tell you that an economically active population means income taxes, sales taxes, and other taxes for the government. So if there's a less economically active population, less taxes for the government. I'm sorry, to the government. So I'm gonna just go over this. So these are the causes of an aging population. The first one is improved healthcare and healthy lifestyles. And these mean a higher life expectancy. And because people live longer, there are more people who age, so therefore an aging population. Low birth rates. Now, what are the problems of an aging population? As we said, there's going to be a less economically active population, so that's less taxes to the government. Then the government has to spend money on pensions for retired people. Especially if they held a government job, it's sort of like they can't not give them pension because it's a way of saying gratitude, and if they don't do so, then it will become, a political matter. Then more money on healthcare to take care of these elderly residents, plus housing for them. Now, what about a younger population? Let's talk about the causes of a young population. So, the thing about this chapter, population dynamics, is it's usually the same concepts being repeated over and over again. So, this has to do with fertility rates. So, if you have watched the first video, I've already explained the causes of fertility rates, and all of this is already explained. So, fertility rates as well as birth rates, right? So children seen as economic assets for large families, working in farms. No choice for women, that's a cultural reason. Choice for women as in they have no say in what they want to do. They have to live up to cultural expectations of a large family. Lack of access to contraception would have to do with poverty and affordability. What's that word? Whatever. Affordability. Yeah, that word. Now, the effects of a young population. I think you can already guess what's going to come in. So, one, if the government is poor, which is usually, as we said, young population is in LEDCs. So, government struggles to provide for the population, especially housing, education, healthcare. Healthcare, as in vaccinations, are really important because, when you're young, you have to get a lot of vaccinations. So the government really struggles to provide these as they are poor. Secondly, a lot of children usually end up without education or without completing school years. And this, would in turn lead to a lot of other problems such as unemployment or poverty. And 3, less taxes received by the government. So as you can see, I've said this point also for an aging population. So you might be wondering, so does that mean that, at first I thought that having an aging population would mean it's better for a country, but then I realized that for a country to develop, have good development and a good economic status, there needs to be a balance of aging and young population. So even though aging populations are usually seen in MEDCs, they don't always mean, something good or something great just because it's an MEDC. For a country to have good development, there needs to be this economic balance. So that's it for this chapter. So we are able to identify and give reasons for the different types of population structure, as well as understand the pyramids at different stages of economic development. Now in my next video, I'll be uploading this case study. Thank you for watching.